Welcome to the Business Spotlight. My name is Tanner O'Brien, and I am your host for today's conversation. I'm so excited to be sitting down with my guest today, Chris Turas, who is the founder and CEO of Lion REI, which is a veteran-owned construction company here in Central Texas. We're going to be digging into a few things in this conversation today: business journey, challenges, best practices, really just kind of that sneak peek into what it's really like to run and operate a business. So, Chris, thank you so much for agreeing to be here today. Excited to dive in. For our audience, why don't you just give a little bit of background, tell us a little bit about who you are, and tell us about the business.
Well, thanks for having me, Tanner. I do appreciate it. I, well, where do I start? My background comes from the Marine Corps, and because of that, I'm, set up for different things, or at least I'm wired for different things. One is I'm not wired to live in society anymore, so I have to conform in my own way and create my own opportunities throughout that. And honestly, just being able to run a business and see how I can take my learning from the Marine Corps and implement it into a day-to-day business has been a fun journey. Um, but yeah, we've been in business since October of 2023. And, first few months was rough, as most businesses are. First year was a little bit better, but still rough. And finally, in the second year, we're finally getting that footing where we can, um, start doing more things, start expanding a little bit more, start taking on more opportunities. And yeah, I mean, it's been a fun ride, fun ride.
Well, I'm excited to get into that ride. Just to make it super clear for the audience, for them to kind of understand what is
Yeah.
Lion REI. What type of business are you? What do you guys do?
So construction remodeling company. So when I say that, most people think, oh, well, can you do painting? Can you do AC? Can you do plumbing? Honestly, we have the ability to do everything. We have the ability to do ground up residential, and we have the ability to do ground up commercial. So where those capabilities are is everything from your foundation to your roof and everything in between. We can touch, we can do, we can fix, we can put together whatever it is. I like to put it simple and say that um, you know, I can tear your house down and rebuild it. So it's kind of that's kind of where we are with the remodel phase, but trying to make sure we have the right people in that aspect too, right?
Hmm. That makes sense. So you had mentioned coming from the Marine Corps, jumping into this business. Did you do anything between kind of the two things here? Like what was the journey before actually starting this business? You jump right into this
Yeah,
thing, or how did that
man.
look?
No, it was a fun transition phase, to be honest with you. So um I went from the Marine Corps. I was in a little town called New Bern, North Carolina. And once I got out, I took my needed leave. Essentially, I took 3 months off from working, waited for my VA benefits to start kicking in, and then I started trying to find my footing. It started in a armed guard situation where I went from, being busy all the time to I'm maybe walking around on this job. I'm there for 8 hours and I walk maybe an hour and a half. So a lot of it was very sedentary, very meticulous, and very just um, not fun. So that's where I found that it's going to be a difficult transition from what I was doing, how everything was going, and then into uh, something on my own. But you started as security, then I moved from North Carolina to Florida, to Jacksonville, Florida. I got a job on the naval base over there, doing a security aspect as well, but found out, the pay just wasn't what it wasn't what I wanted to do. Um, Went through a divorce in that process and moved from Jacksonville to Austin. And the only reason why I landed here in Austin is because of a friend of mine. His name's Angel Ball. He actually does a few different things now as well. But really, I started my journey on his couch in Texas. I started my journey 2 weeks on his couch. And from there, it was, you know, really his wife that kicked me out and said, "Hey, you gotta go." All right, I'll go. I'll figure it out. And so I went from that to renting a room to renting an apartment. While I was doing that, I was working at Men's Warehouse, a place where I worked in high school. So it was kind of a shot to the chest, right? Where I went from that spot to the Marine Corps, and now I'm right back where I was, in a better position, doing a lot more. But again, still trying to find my footing. I was really good at sales. Um, it was up until COVID hit, um, that really sparked the a transition for me because COVID hit. We sat for 3 months on furlough, and I went, okay, I need to figure something out, but didn't have the footing of what I wanted to do at that point. Um, Went through COVID, came back, and my turning point at Men's Warehouse was my manager. Mind you, prior to COVID and into COVID, I was the top salesman at the store. I was doing 80, I was doing $20,000 in sales every single week. And then once we got down to, you know, COVID time, like March, I was still pushing $10,000, $15,000 while nobody else was moving anything. Mind you, this is when suits were actually expensive, right? Where your average suit is $800,
Yeah.
and then your shirts are 75 X, Y, and Z. And so we came back, my property manager, sorry, my my store manager told me, "So you don't know what you're doing." Oh, okay. Well, I'm the first of all, you brought me back before everybody else. Second of all, I'm the highest paid salesperson in this store right now. And you're gonna tell me I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, cool. 2 weeks. Bye. That was it. I cut it, went and did some other couple things, couple other ventures, got into real estate wholesale, uh, went into that. I was there for a year and a half, got out of that, and got into leasing, which was a stupid mistake. Should have never went into property management because it's just not, it is not, it is for, I'll put it this way, it is for the people that are good with putting a facade. And I don't want to say that, like, there's a lot of people that are really good at giving up a little bit to say, you know what, you're right. I'm not that person. Sorry. But I'm going to tell you how it is. I'm going to tell you like it is. And if you don't like it, well, I'm sorry. But some of these things need to pass. So I was actually looking at getting a job in training for the leasing agents because my skill level was at where it needed to be. And to do that, got passed over. At that point, I transitioned into working with the guy in oil and gas. That was another terrible mistake. Worked for the guy for 3 months, and I essentially ran a COO role without the actual role for three different companies that he owned, and got paid over the course of 3 months. Got paid $6,000. So wasn't sufficient. But mind you, I had been working at home for 3 months. I'm not going into another office. I'm not going to do a 9 to 5 again. It's not for me. So luckily, my now wife, uh, around that time that I was trying to find footing on where I wanted to go, her dad moved from Illinois. He had been in the painting business for 35 years. So I was like, okay, cool, this is great. But didn't think anything of it until we started doing marketing for him. We landed our first job at a Holiday Inn and doing some painting on a Holiday Inn second floor. And when we started that, there was a lot of wish wash on if we should do the project or not because we didn't have a team at the time. So me and my wife are fishing out to people trying to figure out who we can put together to paint this property because it's not just going to be under dad. It's impossible. It's 22 rooms. We needed like 4 or 5 people to jump in and help out. And so we made the call to bring in some people, got them brought in. It was a good and bad mistake. We had some income, but what we were being charged was higher than, right? So we spent our first job kind of losing money
Hmm.
and trying to revisit where we went wrong, right? But really from there, I said, look, like, this is an opportunity. I know this can scale. I know this can be something. So we're going to run with this. Um, and like most businesses, the first couple of months were rough. We went from October to December with, I think we went negative $25,000
Ooh.
in the first couple months. And so from there, because one of the reasons, one of the things was, is that um, you're not you're not told when you first get into that industry is that you're going to have a slow period. It's kind of seasonal to some level. You go from November until February, give or take, with little to no business. And it was nothing like what you would think during the summer or whatever. It literally was almost a halt because you've got Thanksgiving, you've got Christmas, you've got New Year's. Nobody wants to do anything. Nobody wants to spend money on those things. So we took that hit. And then January rolled around and we're starting to gain traction. January, February, starting to gain traction. And then, so we went from 25,000 or negative 25,000 or more. I don't keep track of it because it hurts. Um, but then January, we turned around and I think we ended the year at, you know, $200,000 in revenue. Not a whole lot for a whole year. But mind you, we're still gaining traction. We're still building a brand. We're still doing those things. Fast forward to this year and we're in August,
Hmm.
and I think we're at price 650, right around 650. So it's not something that's extravagantly different. But if you look at it, we're 3x the business from last year, and I'm looking to 5x. I'm looking to get a mil in revenue by the end of this year.
Mm.
And one of my other goals is to push through November to February and stay busy, stay income, stay cash positive, because those slow times. I mean, there was a time where I told you I'm not going to go back to a job. Well, that little short period in the first couple of months, I went, dang, I might need to get a job. And then I said, mm, anxiety hit, and I said, nope, I'm done. Can't do it. I got to figure this out. And so it just kind of flowed from there. It's yeah, man, it's an interesting ride so far.
I want to, if we can, I want to dig into kind of that painful time frame a little bit,
Right, right.
because I think this is really critical, especially for a lot of the entrepreneurs out there, who've gone through very similar things or are thinking about getting into business and need to kind
Yeah.
of understand that there's a longer game to this thing to be played. And that, dang, I might need to go get a job feeling is one
Yeah.
that I think every single one of us feels at some point as we
Oh
go
yeah.
through this thing. So first I want to ask a couple things around. You've got first couple months, negative $25,000 ish, give or
Yeah.
take. How'd you float that? Was there, did you have, were you fortunate enough to have kind of some capital stored away that you were just eating through at that point? Like, what did that look like to actually make it through? Because if you're at zero,
Crazy.
go negative 25,000, like that doesn't
Yeah,
work from a cash point unless you got something going on.
exactly. So that's crazy, and that's a great question because I don't know what your belief system is, but for me, God had our back in that point, right? Because I had an opportunity while we were building this. Is that I have a background, obviously, I said in wholesale real estate, and so oddly enough, about a month prior, about a few weeks prior to us kicking this off and actually pulling the trigger, I had a previous client call me, and she said, "Hey, listen, you helped me on this property and selling this property for myself and my husband. My husband has an aunt that needs to sell her property. Wanted to see if you can help us out." I said, "Listen, I'm not the same company that I was before, but I do have an assignment contract. I do have all of the things that I need to. If you have faith and trust in me to get this done for you, then I'll get it done for you." And she said, "Okay, great. Let's do that." First thing I did, got pictures, got a price point. I told her, "Look, we're going to be at like 215 for this property." I called up my contact in North Carolina and I said, "Hey, do you want to buy this house?" He's like, yeah, he took a look at it. He's like, "Look, I'm probably at like 272, 275, but I need to go take a look." Okay, cool. So he goes, takes a look, comes back, gives me a number at 252. I said, "Look," I said, "that's great. Um, let's do that. Let's get that done. But I'm gonna go to the seller and I'm gonna see if I can get a price drop so I can get a little bit extra cash flow here. Well, I was able to get it down to 210. So if you know how wholesale real estate works, I made $42,000 on this deal,
Yeah.
and it was in 30 days. So from that, it went from, okay, great. Now we have the capital to float us until until we come back around the next year.
Yeah.
And so luckily we were able to have that opportunity. But mind you, had we not had that opportunity lined up, we were scraping and we were trying to make it by. But I think the biggest thing and the saving grace was that there was a skill that I had prior that I was able to tap into and be able to then extend the business to, be able to float the last couple months.
I think that's such a critical point. And I appreciate you kind of digging into that too. Because,
Yeah.
we can tell the story of, hey, it didn't look so good. We made it through all that kind of stuff. But to be able to take a step back and be like, hey, there was a layering of skills that took place before this that we could at least go back on. So I don't have to go get a job, but I got to do something to
Yeah.
be able to make this
Exactly.
thing work. And,
Exactly.
for some people, maybe I need to go figure out how to get funding, or maybe I need
Yeah.
to sell something different, or I need to do X, Y, and Z just to make it through the time period. So I appreciate you kind of sharing that little nugget of what worked for you in this
For
case.
sure.
So let's fast forward a little bit. So we're talking first full year in business. Then did about
Yeah.
200K this year, up to roughly two or 650 or so, on track for maybe about a mil.
Yeah.
What's been the difference maker? What has been the thing that's kind of helped you transition from year one to year two to see really that growth start to pick up for you?
So what I've done differently is implemented some level of a team that I can push out, a level of a team where I can have a little bit of confidence in them. I can gain traction. And one of the biggest things too is, you know, in this business, you have a lot of small or big opportunities. A lot of the times, taking those small opportunities can expand into a bigger opportunity. And the first of the year of actually this year, we because I get a lot of leads, like homeowner leads from Home Depot, and I'm able to capitalize on some of those. And some of them they're just people shopping and doing stuff, right? But one of them was actually a fire station at the beginning of this year, and the initial setup was that they wanted to come in and they wanted to do a bathroom remodel on one of their fire stations. Okay, cool. We'll get that set up. We'll do that, price it out. And then it transitioned. Well, we want to take our bunk room and we want to turn it into 4 rooms instead of doing the restrooms. Okay, that's fine. Let me come take a look at everything. Let me get a feel for everything. And so I went in for the remodel of the restrooms at around 30K because of the ideas and everything that they were throwing at me when we were. And then we're sitting there walking through, doing a walkthrough, checking scope of work. And the guy that I'm dealing with, he says, look, we're going to go ahead and do the bunk room also. So price everything together. Let's piece it all together, get it over to me, and let us get with our board and figure out if we're ready to go. Well, long story short, we went from a 30K job to a 70K job. And it was just because I took an opportunity and I made that happen. And so really it's kind of funny because that was kind of our snowball that really projected, because we went from that one fire station to a second fire station with them. And so we quickly went from 70 to 140, $150,000 in a matter of 2, 3 months. And then from there, stuff just kept getting stacked and stacked and stacked. And one of the biggest things for me is, I tell my guys is, listen, if I can put you on a job, then I can capitalize on what I'm good at. And what I'm good at is sales, networking, and marketing. I can market that. Like if I am doing it for myself or I'm doing it for anybody else, I can market the hell out of something and I can push it where people get behind it. And if I can network, like one of the biggest reasons, like I'm at Lifetime. I was at
Mhm.
a local gym before. Well, one of the biggest points for me to come to Lifetime is that if you've ever been into a Lifetime gym, and you look around and you look around on the first floor, you see I see 10 people right now on their computers. All 10 of these people to me are networking opportunities, because one of the biggest things I've learned is that you are, what do they say? This statistic, about 6.5 people away from the person you want to talk to. And
Mhm.
so, so long as you're constantly moving, you're constantly passing on your cards, you're constantly networking, you're telling people what you do, because nobody knows what you do. Nobody knows what my shirt looks like. Nobody knows what my shirt says. They don't know what that means. But if you're talking to people and you're creating these conversations, which is, kind of lost in society a little bit, you're breaking that norm of text messages, this is in the shop, but LinkedIn messages, stuff like that, where you're breaking a traditional mold and going back to the roots of genuine conversation. Then you can create that network of people. You can meet more people. You can then expand that LinkedIn, 500 people that you're following to 1,000 people, just because you talk to 2 or 3 people. And so that's really what the biggest change was, is that it was getting over the concept that nobody wants to hear what I have to say and forcing people to listen. I know that sounds aggressive, but it's one of those things that changed it, because it was, I mean, hell, I even went to my church and was talking to people. What do you guys do? What do you do? Oh, well, this is what I do. And that actually turned into a $250,000 remodel on a house. And so one of the biggest things is just telling people what you do, having that conversation, because, everybody's in the world of social media and doing all of those things, and it works out great when it works. But there's face to face you got to have. Or
Mhm.
if you lose face to face, then you lose 50% of business all the time,
Mhm.
because you can only reach so many people on social media that are in your general area. So that's one of the biggest things that changed, right? Is that it went from nobody wants to hear me to everyone's going to hear me. Everybody's going to hear what I do. Everybody's going to hear what Lion REI is. Everybody's going to be mashed with it until they start asking the questions. What do you do? What can you do for me? How can you do this? Can you do that? What is your capabilities? And once those questions start coming in, then it's just a matter of, well, if you have a project, let me take a look. X, Y, and Z, right? It all leads into something.
Man, I love that so much. And I like to ask some questions on marketing and sales, and I think you just gave us a micro master class, and there are some things that are really important today. And I want to
Yeah,
highlight the fact that you had mentioned that there's still this in-person, face-to-face conversation that needs to be had today. And I
yeah,
firmly believe that, probably more so than ever before, just with the flood of everything that's happening online. Yeah, digital still can and does work, but
yeah,
don't sidestep the fact that yeah, there's people sitting across from you in the gym, all that like, go have a conversation, ask them about different things, lead into natural things that's going to allow you then to potentially identify some challenges and things like that that you have the
yeah.
ability to solve. And that's really cool. I also want to highlight the fact that, on the sales end of the spectrum, you had mentioned one of the things that helped you kind of really grow from year one to now where you're at so far in the second full year is taking some of these smaller opportunities and moving them into larger opportunities, looking at some of the upsells, the cross sells, the ability to navigate and get more out of the folks that you're having conversations with. Which I would say, unless you've got a big sales background, which some
Hmm.
folks that get into business maybe don't, that may be a piece that's missed, right? So is that
Right.
something that you learned as as you built up kind of those sales skills before jumping into business? Were these some of those kind of skills that you stacked along the way?
Of course. I mean, being in sales most of my adult life is what set me up to be here. But also, I mean, it comes down. I was at Men's Warehouse in a sales job at 16. So I was selling, but that was back, I mean, that was back in 2006, 2007, where I'm just this 16-year-old kid with a suit and tie, and I'm telling this old man that's coming in for a business interview how to dress. And that is a challenge in itself, because they're looking at me like, what do you know? Well, look how I'm dressed. Like, this is where I'm at. Look at where I'm at. You're buying the suit from here. Let me give you some education on some things. And so once I was able to hone into that skill at a young age, I knew that I could capitalize on that anywhere. right?
Hmm.
So it came out to taking the sales at a young age and building on it even when I was in the Marine Corps. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but there's a level of sales that comes into every part of life. I mean, you talk about negotiation, you talk about selling somebody on an idea that you have, you talk about uh being a leader. Leadership has sales in itself, right? You have to sell somebody you that you know what you're talking about. And so whenever you start capturing that and realizing that everyday life is kind of a sales I don't want to say game, but it's like a sales builder. What
Hmm.
skill can I implement here to get the outcome that I want? And I know it sounds manipulative, but it also just if you can't, I think I think one of the biggest things that has benefit me in in that aspect is being able to have two skills, and that is networking and sales. If you can master those, or at least have a moderate knowledge on how to utilize those, I mean that's where it's at. And if you can't, then I believe that that creates a difficulty there, right?
Hmm.
So I think that if we the question is, does that play a role? I think that plays a role in every business, but I think it plays a role in life, period.
Yeah. I would tend to agree with that. So these are some of the skills that you built, you've been really good at, have been able to open up kind of the space to be able to flex those skills within your business. So 2 years in, or right around 2 years in now, what have been the biggest areas you've had to grow through? Obviously, for jumping into business, right? There's a whole bunch of different things to learn on top of marketing and sales and just operating and things like that.
Yeah.
Where have you found kind of the biggest areas that you've had to kind of grow through as areas that maybe you've had to find some other folks that come onto the team and actually do for you because they're not the biggest like areas that you've had all the skill set in, but what would have been the biggest growth areas for you being in business?
Man, that's a deep question. It's not something that you typically think about, right? But I think that some of the areas that I have needed to grow and create a skill for myself is in getting into social media marketing for me. Um, I'm not the type to go out in the gym or out on town and take a video of myself talking about my day. It's not me. So one of the skills um, I had to learn is how to utilize social media to tell a story, and it's became difficult. It's still a work in progress because it's the hounding that I get all the time from outside sources, from other network people. Hey, you really got to jump into social media marketing, doing those things. Um, and then also, I wouldn't call it a skill, but I think it was an adjustment. Is I had to realize that if I want to grow, it can't be by myself, especially in this industry. I have to be able to have people that I can surround myself with that can help the business grow, but then also have the same vision of which my vision is $1 billion company when I started in 5 years. So really, I have 3 years to reach that goal, and it's an astronomical, uncomfortable goal, but it has to be uncomfortable for it to even be partially attainable. So surrounding myself with the people has been that, but then also the marketing skill is what I had to dive into because it's not a natural thing for me.
Mm.
Social media is I grew up in the 90s when, your parents said, hey, be home by the when the lights come on. That's where I was at. I was outside, I was doing those things. It's 90s, early 2000s, 2000 hit and everybody had a cell phone. But that was the biggest thing is in the 90s, you're growing up outside, you're growing up in life, not recording life. And now you have to be mindful and meaningful to do something behind a camera.
Hmm.
Like this for me is not a norm. I'll be honest. But this is an incredible opportunity that I knew that needed to be able to happen in order for me to be able to not only help another entrepreneur, but also help others, and then also help myself as well. Get the business out there with stuff that people don't know about.
Yeah. Which leads me directly to the really the last kind of set of questions before we get to the rapid fire, and that really is
Yeah,
vision. Where do you see this business long term? So you just articulated, if I heard correctly, $1 billion company, ideally in the next 3 years or so. But
yeah,
give us the vision. What do you see for this company? How do you see it growing over the next 3 years? Kind of lay that out for us.
fast. Growing fast. No,
Fair point.
yeah, the biggest thing here, man, is it's the vision, but you also have to kind of look at the big goal and say, okay, well, how do I get there? Basically, reverse engineering that goal. And what I found is the vision. The best way to visualize this for me is, okay, first of all, one step at a time. But one of the biggest things is okay, in the next 3 years, I have to, what is it, 1,000x what I'm doing right now.
Mhm.
So how do I do that? Well, again, one step at a time. But that means this year hit 1 million for revenue. And that means next year I need to be in the millions uh in 6 months. I need to be in the double digit millions in 6 months. And then the next 6 months have to be, at another double digit, even closer to 100 million, right? We're talking about an astronomical, fast paced growth that is very attainable, but it just has to be done each step at a time. And breaking that down, it ultimately comes down to people. If I can grow my team to 15 people and have, you know, different levels to my crews, then that's easily attainable with the growth, because ultimately all starts here with me and what I'm pushing out with marketing, with networking, with job creating. But once it gets to that level and I get to that point and I set that background in, then it's starting to bring people in just to replicate what I'm doing. And that's the biggest thing of growth, is you have to step away as an entrepreneur, as an owner, and be able to say, okay, I molded this person to do what I want them to do and know what's successful. Now I have to deploy them and implement them into the business full force and trust that they're going to do what I've asked them to. And a lot of the time is, I think the only way that I'm going to get to that growth is trusting people, employing people, trusting people, and letting them go to action. And if I can't do that, then I'm going to stay where I'm at.
What do you think is going to be required of you to grow into that goal?
Different mindset, a mindset of $1 billion company, actually a mindset of $100 billion company, because the mindset is going to be the biggest thing. If I can't get into a $100 billion mindset, how am I going to get to $1 billion mindset? How am I going to be able to to grow something to that? But what it's going to be for me is what I'm doing, but more networking, marketing, job creation, literally putting everything out there that I can to get to that next client that's going to be, we have clients right now. Like, for instance, I have a client that wants to do a house flip every 60 days. We're doing one right now. We're about to wrap it up. And then the next one's coming. She's already talking about another $175,000 remodel. That's another $175,000 revenue to the business. Well, how do I duplicate that with other people? Well, she goes and tells her people that Lion REI is doing everything that she wants them to do. And then the client that we're working on the full remodel, that a contractor actually messed up, and we're going in and fixing all his mistakes and redoing it the right way. She's gonna go tell people about our business and what we've done. And then creating signs. I have a sign outside. I actually got another potential client that is right down the street from the house that we're working on out in Lakeway. He called me and he said, "Hey, I want you guys to come take a look at my property. see what you guys can do, see what kind of pricing. And well, it's a garage minimum. It's a $250,000 project. So how we do that is one person at a time, but making sure that we create the name for ourselves and making sure that our name stays at the top level where I want it to be. I'm not just a normal GC. I'm not just a normal remodeler. I'm not going to walk in there and I mean, the biggest problem that I have is that, not a problem, but from the Marine Corps, is attention to detail. And if I see something that's a little bit messed up, hey, you got to fix that. What is that? That doesn't work for me. So quality over quantity is where we are, because if I can create quality, I get the quantity.
All right, now I'm going to ask you the tough question.
Uh-oh.
Why a billion? What does a billion solve that 100 million doesn't?
Ooh, it's a great question. A billion dollar mindset for me lines me up for the hundreds of millions. So if I can't think in a billion dollar mentality, which is way up there, how do I get to 100 million? Right? I think that the biggest thing for me is, why a billion? Well, a billion solves a billion different problems, in my opinion. And one of my biggest goals and one of my biggest things is, being in Austin, there is a massive amount of homeless people that, honestly, it breaks my heart, because I've been here since 2019, and I come from Arizona, where, suburbs of Arizona, south of Phoenix, um, and there's no homeless in sight. But I came to Austin, and when I first came to Austin in 2019, there was literally a road of homeless people in their tents, packed up, doing all these things. So 100 billion gets me the ability to build a community that is focused around the rehabilitation of homeless people, getting them into tiny homes, getting them into a better responsibility, getting them into care that actually matters. And that's meaning I'm building a community like the one I live in, but that comes with a medical center in it, that comes with a rehab center in it, that comes with a psychologist, that comes with people that are willing to work to help these people in the same way that I would. So a billion helps more people than 100 million does, because it would cost me $100 million to do that project, to build those homes, to build the facilities that would need to be built, to usher in the people that would need to be able to um, manage that facility. And then also the people that would be interested in giving, hey, there's jobs on property. You can do gardening. You can do a, a, a an animal shelter. You can do all of these different things within that community to give back to these people that have wound up in unfortunate situations. I mean, if you walk on 6th Street at 9 o'clock at night, every corner you're hitting somebody. And so for me, it's bigger than me. It's not just, hey, I want $1 billion just to reach that. No. Mm-mm. I want $1 billion so that I can help other people in that. If I gotta float $100 million to start the project, cool. But I bet you, and I almost guarantee, as soon as that gets traction, as soon as the state hears about that, they're jumping in and they're helping out. And that's the goal, is get to that project, get those people there, fund it to the ability that is necessary, and then get the state involved, make the state take responsibility, because most people don't know, but other states, other cities give homeless people bus tickets to come to Austin, because there's no structure here for homeless people. And if you give them a structure, you give them an ability to be people again, then you give them hope to be able to strive in society. Yeah, you know what? Some people aren't going to be able to be ushered back into society, but you create your own society, you create your own community there of people that are going through the same hardships, that they actually tend to bond, they come together, they build that bond that they can do whatever they need to do at that point. So that's why $1 billion is important.
There you go, folks. There is the $1 billion mission. Chris, I absolutely loved it. And I appreciate you allowing us to go into that specific detail because I think I can feel the emotion that came off as you were sharing that with me.
Yeah.
And you know, to highlight this for the audience, there is now a vision, a mission that is beyond Chris and his business here, and the business now allows him to go after the how of tackling this particular mission and some things like that. So if you're listening to this and you're interested and you want to be a part of this journey, please make sure you do reach out to Chris because
Mhm.
this is he's going to need a lot of folks that are passionate about this mission to continue to grow the business over the next few years. Chris, I want to get into a few rapid fire questions as we wrap up. And these are meant to be kind of top of mind. So best of your ability here, but when you think of kind of your key to success going through military, your additional kind of career paths and things like that before starting the business, now being a couple years into business, what would you say has been kind of your key to success?
Discipline, doing the things that you don't want to do, doing the hard things. I mean, I think discipline is the key to success all the way around. And I think it's because you have to wake up as an entrepreneur and do the things that nobody else wants to do.
Hmm.
And hell, you don't want to do them some mornings either. But
So true.
in order to stay within that, you have to do the hard things. I mean, you know, it comes down to a small thing. And for me, it's my friend, like I told you, I grew up with this kid. I lived in his apartment for 2 weeks on his couch, right? And he's going through life and doing coaching and doing all this stuff now. And it took him a while to get there. But one of the biggest things that he implemented was you gotta be able to do the things that are hard because if you don't, somebody else is gonna do it.
Yeah.
If you're not doing it, somebody else is gonna do it. And I know this whole fad of doing cold plunge and all of that stuff. Um, it's out there. It's one of those things that everybody preaches about and rants and raves about. But they say it's about immunity. It's about creating a better, internal immune system. Really, it's a mental game. You jump in that and you do the things that people don't want to do. I mean, you're already doing something more than what somebody else doesn't want to do. The hardest part is getting in at first and going all the way in and dunking your head and then sitting there for 3 minutes. I'll tell you, it's the worst thing I have, and I absolutely hate it. But I know that it's something I have to do in order to grow my mental ability.
Oh man. And it like never gets better. It's always
Oh
difficult to get
no, it always sucks. It always sucks. Always. And the hardest part is saying, hey, I'm going to stay in here for a minute longer. Nope. Mm-mm. I'm counting that down. Okay. It's been 3.5 minutes. I'm out. Let's go. So, yeah,
um,
to your answer, I think
discipline.
it's discipline.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. If you could leave just one piece of advice for business owners today, and just one thing for them,
Ooh,
what would you want to leave them today?
ooh, don't give up. Don't give up. Because one of the biggest things is life is hard. And I think it comes from Andy Priscilla is where I heard it from. But life is hard. What hard do you want to choose? Do you want
Mm,
to choose the hard that you have to wake up and do things with? Do you do you want to have to choose the hard? Do you want to have to choose the hard where you got to do a 9 to 5? What is it that you want to do? How hard do you want life to be? And the hard for me is, and I cannot go back from this, is the hard for me is waking up at 5:30 and doing what I love to do. I don't want to live somebody else's dream. I don't want to build somebody else's company. I don't want to build somebody else's this or that. I literally want to wake up and do what I want to do for me because I know that I can count on myself. So choose your heart. Which hard do you want? Do you want the hard that's working for somebody else, or do you want the hard that sucks? And you don't know what's going to happen the next day, but you know that if you put something in, you're going to get something out.
That's amazing. All right, before we get to the final question,
Yep.
for the audience, they want to connect
Hmm.
with you. They want to follow this amazing journey and crazy ride that you're on. If they want to potentially come work with you at some point
Yeah.
down the road, where can we advise them to go for some more information?
So we can go to LinkedIn. There is just Chris Turas, which his last name is Turas. Um, and then I also have a page on there, which is Lion REI. Uh, Instagram was changed recently, but it's Lion REI Construction, TX, I believe. My phone broke, so I can't take a look at it and tell you. But it's that and Facebook. I mean, Facebook is my name or Lion REI.
Amazing. We'll make sure we link some of these below. If you are watching or listening to this later on, please take a minute and just send Chris a note. Say, hey, saw you on the podcast. Amazing conversation. We're backing you. All of that kind of stuff really goes a long way. So I please encourage
100%.
each and every one
Appreciate
of you
that.
to do that. Chris, to finish this out for this conversation today, I always like to end on this one simple question. But what is most inspiring to you today?
Ah, great question. If it's just about today, I think that like today in this moment, I think that this ability to be having a conversation with you guys and being on this podcast inspires me because it gives me an ability to know that sometimes you just got to reach out. Sometimes you just got to push something out there in order to see what happens. And I think that it also says that nobody in the entrepreneurial world is too small. I think that we get caught in this thought that I know for me that the company's too small, right? And that we're too small to be able to honestly to be able to be here. And I think that the greatest inspiration for me is that nobody is too small for anything, especially if you're doing something for yourself. And I think that if you can harness what it is that you love and know that regardless of what your story is, what your background is, you always have the ability to speak into somebody else that may be in the exact same shoes that you were. So again, my friend told me the simple thing is that if you're going to talk to somebody or teach somebody something, teach it to the old you, the younger you, the other version of you that you have grown away from, and you'll inspire so many people by doing that.
Yeah. Those are powerful words, my friend. Chris, I want to say thank you so much for being here. This has been an
Thank
absolute
you.
pleasure. I know I could talk your ear off for another 30, 40 minutes, but I want
Yeah,
to be
we probably
respectful
could.
of time. So I just want to say thank you again for taking time. This has been
Yeah,
an absolute pleasure.
thank you. I do appreciate it.